It's summer here in Australia and all our Agapanthus are in bloom at the moment and they're looking beautiful. So this week I did a painting of them. Agapanthus are a weed here where we live, which we didn't realise when we planted them. We've got them planted en masse in our garden. They're such a pretty plant, and every summer they put on a beautiful show for us. The honey eaters love them, and so do the bees. They remind me every year that Christmas is just around the corner. A few years ago I painted this painting, which took a bit of patience. And I didn't really feel like painting another flower head, but I knew that I wanted to capture some photographs of them just in case I wanted to paint another one at some time in the future. So I went out in the garden and I photographed some of them. And I noticed all the little flower heads that were beginning to burst open. They had beautiful colours on them. And I thought that they might make an interesting painting. And I knew that I could paint them quicker than the full flower head. So I chose one of the photographs and I painted the main flower head in the middle. When I started the painting, I thought that I'd just paint one and that would be it. I painted it and then I stepped back and looked at it and I felt that it needed more. So I got out a few of the other photos that I took and I decided to add one of them to the painting. I didn't want to detract from the main flower head, so I thought I'd make it a bit smaller and I'd make it lighter in colour than the main flower head. I put that one on and then decided that I wanted another one. So I'm going to show you how I painted the little Agapanthus flower heads behind the main one because that's when I started filming. I've nearly finished painting the main flower. I've just got this bit in here to finish. I got to this stage and I decided that I needed another flower head. So I drew another one and I traced it onto some tracing paper. I've scribbled some graphite onto the back of the tracing paper and now I can position it where I want it and trace it onto my painting. What I thought I'd do to make it look like it's further away, I'd try to keep the colours lighter than the main flower head. And I also thought that I'd add a soft edge down this side. I start by wetting the paper with some clean water. The paper that I'm using is Fabriano Artistico cold pressed watercolour paper. And the brush that I've got here is a Da Vinci Maestro Series 35. This is a number 8. When I wet the paper, I'll take the water past my pencil line on the left-hand side. I've erased the pencil line so that it's very pale and I can only just see it. By taking the water past the edge there, that will mean that when I put the paint on, it will wander off into the background slightly, and that will give me that soft edge down that side, which will hopefully make it look like that edge is further away from us. This is Daniel Smith's New Gamboge. It's very pale, I don't have a lot of pigment here. I'm painting that onto the wet paper. This colour here is Winsor & Newton's Ultramarine Violet. That's fairly light as well. I don't have a great deal of pigment on my brush. As I said, I wanted to keep this fairly light to begin with so that it will look like it's further away. This is the edge where I want the paint to be softer. The New Gamboge, the yellow colour, is still wet, it hasn't dried. Just pulling that violet through it to create those streaks of colour. Down the bottom here I've got some sap green. Both the violet and the yellow are still wet. And here I've got some burnt sienna. So I'm getting to the point now where I probably need to stop painting because the paper is starting to dry. So I just need to move as quickly as I can to get it on there while it's still wet. So everything's nice and pale at this stage. And you can see over here on the left hand side that I've got that soft edge forming. That top section is dry now. Now I want to paint in the stem. So I'm wetting the paper with water, but I'm wetting past the area where the stem will sit. And that will give me soft edges on the stem. This is sap green again. I'm keeping all my colour values really light. I know that I can darken them by painting some more colour over the top if I need to. This is ultramarine violet as well, and I'm painting that onto the wet sap green paint. Now I'm starting to paint some of the ultramarine violet onto the flower head. I'm working on wet paper here. I've switched down to my number 5 Maestro brush. The other one was a bit big, I felt. Now I've got some sap green. I've just wet this one with water and I've got some sap green on this one. So I've got the water on there so that I can leave some white paper showing. And that way I won't get any hard edges forming in the paint. Here I've got some ultramarine violet. I'm painting it on with my little 00 brush. The paper's still wet. Now I'll wet this one with water. I'm going to paint this in 2 halves. So that's the left hand side, and this is ultramarine violet again. So I form the outside edge of it and I let it bleed in towards the centre. I leave a bit of white paper showing, and then I paint some sap green. I'll leave that one to dry. I've just wet this one. And that's some ultramarine violet there. I've got a bit on this other one, so I'll just use my damp brush to get that off. And some more sap green. So you can see I'm keeping everything fairly pale. All the colour values are very similar and all very light. Now I can come back and paint in the other side of this one. The paper is wet here as well. So then I keep going using ultramarine violet and sap green, and I wet the paper before I paint it on. I want to do a bit more work on this outside part of it. So I'm wetting it with water. Put the water all over it, and while it's wet I run some burnt sienna down this front edge. Now I've got some of the violet. Using my little brush now just to create some streaks. The paper's still wet. And then I wet this one again and I'm darkening the colour. I've had a look at it, I've stood back and I thought to myself, this needs to be a bit darker, especially on this front section. So I wet it with water and I put a bit more paint on. I've just wet this part with water again. It was starting to dry, so I needed to let it dry completely. Then I re-wet it with water, and I've got some Antwerp blue now. Then I come back and finish off these other little flower heads. I don't know what to call them. I don't know whether they're petals or flower heads. So that's water, and then the ultramarine violet. So that's water, and this is sap green. It's a bit darker now. And some violet up there. Now I've looked at it again and I can see that I need to darken it a bit further. So I've wet the stalk or stem with some water, and this is sap green again. Now I can see that I need to darken the outside some more, so I'm wetting it again with water. And this is the violet again, ultramarine violet. I'm keeping the colour away from the back edge of it. I'm putting most of the colour on the front section here. That has dried now. I'm using my Rosemary & Co. Eradicator brush to create a few little highlights in that section. So the paper's dry, the brush is damp, and I rub it gently with the brush and use a tissue to take the paint off. That creates those little highlights. I left that to dry, and I came back to this main flower head and I started to paint in this section that I hadn't finished. Here I've got sap green, but I've mixed a bit of burnt sienna into it. I'm painting on dry paper here. That was a bit of water up there though. Some water there. And some more of the ultramarine violet. And some of the green. All through the painting I'm constantly adjusting the colour values. I'm deepening shadows, making colours a bit brighter as well. I stood back and had another look at it and decided that I wanted another flower head. So I've put this one on here. Then I did the same thing with this one. I worked mainly on wet paper again. I used the same colours. Tried to keep it fairly light in colour value. After I painted that one in, I could see that the front stem wasn't dark enough, so I needed to paint another layer over the top of it. So this is still sap green, but there's more pigment now, and that will bring that one forward because it's darker. This is a bit of Antwerp blue up here on this shaded side. That's going straight over the top of the wet sap green. So then I finished off this little flower head behind the front one. Just adding a little bit of detail here. This is burnt sienna. I'm painting on dry paper now. Here I'm on wet paper, and that's ultramarine violet. So then I could see that I needed some more colour on this main flower. So I'm coming back and I'm darkening it in places. Not everywhere, just in a few places. This is ultramarine violet again. I thought the outside of it here wasn't bright enough, so I'm wetting it with water. And now I've got new gamboge again. But it's brighter this time, there's more pigment on my brush. I'm being a bit bolder with the colour. And then down here I'll put some more of the ultramarine violet. Here I've got no paint on my brush and I'm feathering the paint up that's already on the paper. Then I put a little bit more colour on this little guy here. Because I adjusted the colour on the front one, I felt that this one looked a bit too light. So I boosted the colour there slightly. And then I was done. I'm treating this painting as a study because I didn't film all of it. I may decide to paint another one like this, or I might do a full flower bloom, I'm not sure yet. As I showed you in this demonstration, as I paint, I have to constantly adjust colour values. If I darken this area, then this area over here that's in front of this area will probably need to be darkened as well. I know that lighter contrast recedes into the background where greater contrast brings things forward. And this is important because it creates a sense of form and it gives depth to a painting. I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you don't know what Skillshare is, it's an online learning platform that has thousands of short classes on lots of different topics. I've been working with Skillshare now for a few years and I've published 11 watercolour classes with them and I'm now working on my 12th class. There's not just painting classes that you can do, there's drawing classes, illustrating classes, classes that teach you about photography. You can learn about web design and all sorts of other creative things. They've even got cooking classes and classes on how to look after your houseplants. A few years ago when I was working in licensing, I had to learn how to use my paintings to make repeat patterns that could be used in surface pattern design. These are my rabbits and roses that have been printed on some fabric. You can make repeat patterns in Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. Back then, I had no idea how to use Illustrator, let alone make repeat patterns with it. So this class by Bonnie Christine got me started. Bonnie is a successful surface pattern designer and her class is called Intro to Surface Pattern Design, Learn Adobe Illustrator. She shares a wealth of information about surface pattern designing and how to use Illustrator to create a repeating pattern. So I put that class to good use. Skillshare is packed with classes for creative people. A yearly subscription will cost you less than $10 a month, so it's good value. If you've never had a look at Skillshare and you'd like to explore the site and see what's on offer, I've included a link on this video. The first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like and please subscribe to this channel, and I will catch up with you next week with a new watercolour video. A few years ago I painted this painting and this one took a bit of practice. Patience. Took a bit of patience. I didn't want to detract from the main flower head, so I thought that I'd make that one a bit smaller. Spitting again. A bit smaller. I may decide to paint another one like this, or I might do a full flower boom. Full flower boom. I may decide to paint another one like this, or I might do a full flower boom. I did it again. A full flower boom. Bloom, bloom, bloom. I'm treating this painting as a... If I darken this area, then this area here. No, Louise. I hope you enjoyed that. It's Skillshare is packed with classes for creative people. Sorry about that. For a limited time, use the link in my description to get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership.